We have some friends. I have a good friend who might help us out. Yes. I think you have an excellent outfit. I don't know the German for that. I mean a group of people who come together to work together. That is very important. I think it's very important. You have Hubert, who is delightful and has made my life very easy. What a wonderful life to have. To paint and draw, and nobody can stop you. What can I do? But of course, your work is about form, shape, how we see Renaissance man. You are into Renaissance man. The eye. The eye. Morning. The human eye. I can't get it out. I'll try. It's a big ball, isn't it? And we usually draw and paint like that. Memory, head up and down. Yes? That's the Renaissance man. Fixed eye. Your eye is fixed. Fixed. One eye fixed. And you try and keep that eye fixed while you do this. If you move, it makes it more difficult. The fixed eye, head in a clamp. But our eyes are never fixed. My eye goes wherever I go. Two eyes. Two eyes. Film obviously can do that. You can take canvas like an eye everywhere. But normally, it's that, isn't it? So the human eye is what we must talk about. Because even with a fixed eye, I can see my fingers. Yes, I can. You have that enormous field you can see. But if I move my eye, or my shoulders, or my body, you're into a world, amazing visual world. So how dare we just have a fixed eye? You can get behind, around, above, inside, almost. So, it is the eye that we take with us, the wandering eye. Like that eye there, but that's quite fixed on a camera tripod. So we must talk about the eye, and of course the ear, and of course the nose, and of course touch. The word is sensation. Each day, each second, each moment, we receive billions of sensations. But of course, we shut off because we go mad. We respond to everything. We go mad, so we shut off. We tend to walk around with our eyes closed, like stumble about, no problem. We shut off our senses, the ear, the eye, the touch, etc. Because sensation can be emotions. The soul, heart, love, anger, hate. We tend to concentrate on that. Sensation can also be the senses. So you have emotions each day. Who likes me, who doesn't, who hates me, who doesn't, etc. Or the senses. Both obviously are mixed up. So we'll talk about the sensation, and we'll also talk about life. Our lives. We carry around this enormous burden. We carry around this enormous brain. The German for brain, terrible thing we have, which looks backwards and forwards. We remember, we predict. Goes to ideas. Not very difficult to generate an idea. You can do that in seconds. I could spend my life with that tube of paint, because that would generate many ideas, etc. It's not difficult to create ideas about your emotions. Quite difficult to deal with aspects of what you see. How can you do this whole room? Not just the head, but the head within the total. The toilet, outside, the lift. How can you deal with everything? Because that's what you experience. You experience the whole. As you walk in the room, it's everything. Of course we have to select, and we have to select into the shape. Film. Simple shape. We have to condense. But film, you can take that camera through the room and you can do all sorts of aspects of the room, put them together and find the equivalent of that space. But unfortunately, if you have a fixed eye, you're very limited. Sensation and the senses. Drawing and the senses. The two. Yes? I'm not talking about. Go on. Don't be afraid. Yes? Quick. Draw. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. Thank you. I would normally have a variety of bags full of objects. Each student should have a bag full of things to draw. Through touch. It's quite good then. There's other things in here. If I'd have said, take your time, you would have done, because you would have known, you would have drawn it, wouldn't you, from memory? But you didn't. You responded quickly. That's a difficulty. We usually draw from memory what we know, what we've experienced. Even when you're doing this, you're doing what you know, aren't you? You've seen a human head every day. Millions of them. Millions of them. But we do another one. And why we do it? Is it the colour, the light, or do we want to know more? Or do we want to know less? How can we cut ourselves off from knowing? The child obviously doesn't know. So if a child came here, they do the head, wouldn't want that. That's their equipment. You are clever. You know the nose goes like that, and so on. You know. It's very difficult to be a child. It's very difficult to just describe the equivalent like that. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Because this morning, the language barrier, naturally one wants you to probe it. And then we can have translations maybe and find things out. But you're in a studio working, you have a frame, an edge. You have an edge of paper. You draw a head. What is that head? Why not draw it out here? But it wouldn't be in the book. Your tutor would be very annoyed if you presented a blank canvas and said, I've been drawing here. I'm drawing in space. It's not tangible. I'm doing it here. It's very difficult to put the paint there. So you drop down there. So we do it here. We do it here. We put it usually at the center. And then we have the formal problem of a head and its distribution and how it looks, how it actually looks. Or how we think it looks, how we think it looks. But usually we are drawing from memory. No, we can't escape it. We can't escape drawing from memory. We know what it looks like. We just have to try and put it down. We know what it looks like. So it is awfully difficult to move away from that. That's why last night I tried to suggest that animation is very good for everybody. Because one thing it does, it helps you to move away from what you know and what you think you're clever at, and approximate what you think the thing looks like. Because if I sat here as the model should be fixed. But why should the model be doing whatever? Or that? Disturbing. No, the models are paid to pose classically. You know what I mean. It's very rarely. Would you like me to pose like that? Yeah. Would you like me to strip off? Of course, you can get people. It's best to have, in my opinion, wildlife classes consisted of minimum 4 models. 4. Nude, 2 young models, professional. So they do the classical process. The 2 old models, pensioners. Do you understand that? Old people who are in the clothes. They're being paid, but they're in the clothes. And when you ask them to strip off, but show them some more money, and they strip off. So you only have 2 old folks going around. They soon get used to being nude, drinking coffee, and two young people. And then you have a collision of moving people. On the move. Why should we have a model on the move? People are always on the move. You don't find anybody hardly in the street that is posing for you, do you? Old people maybe, people on benches, that's why we do people like that. But most people are busy on the move, so that is the problem. But capture on the move. Does that make sense? It's good to have many, many models that move. Of course it can be a cliche, but movement is art. Move. What's the equivalent of that in Austrian and German? I can't do that. But you know what I mean. Move. Everything moves. If we had 1 year, and filmed that, you would see that moving, wouldn't you? We haven't got the patience to film that for a year. But it's moving. It's deteriorating. You wouldn't see it move. You know, trick film can do that. But then there's amazing exaggerated movements, etc. We can see that. As we look around, we see every aspect of movement. We look through that window, of course things are moving. There's a bird, that's what our eye notices. Our eye picks up movement. We may miss so many things, but our eye picks up movement. Our eye will do whatever it is. So we study movement. Formally. I will talk about two things. Formal and highly instinctive or intuitive or whatever. Formally, we can study movement. Like we study colour. Hope you don't mind who this belongs to. Don't mind, I'll give you the money. We can study that. We know that's. What is it, German?
G.
How do you spell that?
G-E-L-V.
G-E-L-V. Correct? Yellow in English. What else is it? If it didn't have a name, what would it be? We'd give it a name, so we call it gelb. What would it be if it didn't have a name? How could we describe it? Who gave it a name? Who said it was yellow? Would it exist if we didn't give it a concept name? But it's what it is, a sensation. The lightest colour and the most intense colour. Intense, light, very difficult to use, isn't it? But very difficult to paint a building. Destroys the form. There's that man looking at me. Isn't it an interesting world out there? Much more. What are you doing in here? There's the world. But that yellow needs some description. What I did with my students is to fill a room with yellow. great amount of yellow. Huge yellow there, small yellow. Fill a room full of yellow, or blue, or any colour you like, or grey, black. There's fast blacks, slow blacks, warm blacks, cool blacks. There's hundreds, thousands of blacks. There's thousands of yellows, probably millions of yellows. You can study those millions of yellows. You can walk out. Camera's good. Go out and say, I shall look at yellow. I shall make a film on yellow. I shall deal with yellow for the next 10 years. You'll find out about yellow. And eventually you'll be able to describe yellow, what it means to you. Yellow. Is it soaring? Is it detached? What emotions does it generate? What do you feel about yellow? So there's lots of formal work that can be done in a visual sense. The other side, of course, ideas. How can you generate ideas about anything? In movement, that is not difficult. If you go out and look at things that move, there's plenty of them, and look at things that don't move or don't appear to move, you can easily make an animated film by reversing it. The law of reversal. If you try and swim or float, you sink. If you try and sink, you float. Life is very strange. The law of reversal. So it's very easy to make a film about ideas by making things that move static and things that don't move. So you get a paradox. I'm speaking English and it must be awfully difficult for you. Do you know what I mean about visual paradox? Our world is full of paradoxes. Our literature is full of word paradoxes. Our joke books are full of joke paradoxes. I wouldn't join a club that would have me as a member. You know that one? Right. There's lots of word paradoxes. Include me out. Like that, don't Sam Goldwyn. Include me out. There's lots of them, thousands of them. Very few visual paradoxes. Animation can do visual paradoxes, obviously. We tend to try and do visual paradoxes too in statics, because we think that makes people interested in us, because we can be more mysterious. We tend to be mysterious. We want to be mysterious. People like mystery. If you go up to someone in the street, for instance, a tourist camp like myself, but if you go up to someone in the street and say, how are you? Hello. Everybody thinks there's something wrong with you. Get away. Get away. You know how difficult it is to be open and to be pleasant, light to each other. It's too busy. And if you are, then, of course, you're frowned on. It's awfully difficult. We have to be this kind of individual. Everything going inwards. Very, very rarely would be that kind of person. I have met some very nice people most of the time, we have to operate as individuals. Consequently, lots of film play on that. The individual. The burden of life. And the difficulties, whatever. As a student, that is a great burden. Very difficult to open out and to let go. Because you rapidly discover in life you're much more interesting to other people if you're mysterious and say nothing. If I sat here this morning saying nothing, or walking around to work, you'd probably find me much more interesting. It'd probably be very exciting. If I just said, right, the workshop design, I just go around. That's how life is. I met an old man in a pub in Liverpool who was a grave digger, and he had huge hands. But he said to me, "What do you do?" So I said, "I lecture in an art school." He said, "Oh, I'd love to see that." So I said, "Come in on the train." So next day he was on the station in his best suit, funny suit, all buttoned up like this, and his huge hat. And he looked like Frankenstein. He was a very big man. So I took him into the art school like this.
Wie gut den was gesagt, wann sie wiederkommt.
This little fire. Sorry. I took this man into the art school. This is relevant. And he went in this suit, with his big hands. And I showed him round like this. And I introduced him to the tutors and the students as the chief inspector of art for Britain. And the tutors were. And they kept bringing out more hands. And this man just went. And he frowned and he moved around. People bought him drinks, gave him money. He terrified him, said nothing. But when he got back to the pub at night, very late because he got very drunk, he said to the people in the pub, "I went to this mad place where all these mad people were shouting." Meanwhile, all the students thought this strange man. It was very interesting. And all the staff were filled, the director, come into my office. This man just said, whatever. Unfortunately, that's what we seem to think life is. We're very suspicious if people are kind of open and whatever. So the cult of the individual generated purposely for sales, capitalist merchandising. I've just been down all your shops. Same stuff as in Liverpool, London, New York, Paris, or anywhere. Junk, glitter. That has to be shifted. Somebody has to buy it. So, we can generate feelings that where you have to go and buy things, or change your appearance rapidly, or dye your hair red, or blue, or pink, etc. The cult of the individual is what we're talking about. And every film, or almost every film I've ever seen, seems to be directly related to this loneliness, and this strange detachment, and this difficulty of life. Pity, because if we can get bounce through this individual thing and share more, then there's no problem. How I did that with students was this. Put the names of your students in a hat. Right? Names in a hat. You, etc. Then I used to pick them out as pairs. Like you. It looked as if this was odd and accidental. In fact, tutors have to have certain fun. So you think, I wonder if so-and-so would relate to so-and-so. But anyway, pick some names out of the hat, and then you have two people, not one, but two. Very good. Difficult to pair off because the whole of life is a search for a partner to confirm your existence and to make you feel better, isn't it? The whole of life. You need one soul who says you're nice or what you're doing. You need one soul that comes along and says, oh, don't you? Tutors do that, obviously. They have to make a living. But you do need other people. So it seems to me, right away in an art school, that if you can get people smashed down from this cult of the individual, then you can develop a rapport. You can then develop amazing communication. Then you can develop sharing. And that, of course, is the purpose of an art school. That one's sharing. Not one just doesn't come to work and do an object, an artifact, make a thing and then disappear, or make the thing somewhere else, and hope that it's open for care. One comes to think. Thinking needs stimulus, you need friends. Now, how do you do it as a duo? Well, I used to get one student who would be saying, the doer like this. Do. And the other person would be the same. I can see the wall. And it's white. But it's not. There's an angle. The doer in here has got no responsibility. See more. Oh, great. Look at this, look at that. And the person in here said, what can you see? A wall. A wall. No responsibility. The trouble with responsibility is you start tickling, worrying, and try and do art. Try and make art. It's shedding the responsibility, I think, is important. Where you can just do it. I see, there's a tree. What kind of tree? A big tree, etc. It's good fun, but I bet you have you ever done that? I was worried because I thought the students would reject this being individuals. But they didn't. They went off close. Everywhere. They were doing it together everywhere. They started systems amongst each other because they rapidly realized that the work took on a flair and a charm and a soul. Do you understand what I'm getting at? It is important to share. Share seeing. You see more when you walk around with someone else, don't you? To share seeing. It's difficult to share doing. And if I started to draw on here, now, whoever did this would have a heart attack, wouldn't it? Would they? Whose is this? Should I do it? No, but especially as a tutor, if you came along. No, you'd have a heart attack. You would reject it. But you can share. You can. And that is vital, and that was the central factor, in a sense, of my course in Liverpool. Because if you then can break down from and detach yourself from this conditioned culture, business people, merchandisers want you to be individuals so they can play on your emotions. They want you to feel alone. They want you to feel their way. The artist has to break through that. Artists have always worked together. You work great periods on your own, but you need confirmation. You need someone else. It's impossible. How can you see what you do? It's impossible to see what you do. Maybe 6 months from now, you'll say, did I do that? Maybe. Or you might say, wonderful. But it's very difficult to see what you're doing at the moment in time. Because, well, there's amazing psychological reasons for that. Artists have always need writers. They need kindred spirits. They need confirmation. Now, movement animation can do that for you. Of course, some people specialise in animation. Students came to Liverpool, they'd never heard of animation. They'd heard of cartooning. They didn't want to do that because they weren't very good at jokes. And they thought it was all about gags and jokes. But they discovered that it was a way of visual learning. Whether you go on to illustration or whatever you do in life, it's one way of breaking down all sorts of problems. It's another way of making you work quicker. A lot of work to do. So you work more spontaneous. It's very difficult to say, do 100 heads in 5 minutes, because we have an idea that you spend 2 or 3 days on a painting of 1 head. Are you with me? I'm losing myself really, but you're slightly with me. Is the gist going? Can you get the gist, the flow slightly? Can you?
Etwas nicht versteht, müsste das zusammenfassen.
Also nur fragen, wenn jemand nicht versteht.
We'll have questions in a moment. But I've mentioned 2 things, 3 things, 4 things. Formal qualities. Formal qualities. Forget the image. There's colour and paint, isn't there? Things that are formal qualities. We love it, we get into that. Of course, there's the image, and there's the representation of something seen in fact. But also, it's other things. We can't avoid that. We love it. And the quality, canvas, touch. It's very difficult. Isn't it difficult to puncture that canvas, to start? It's too nice. So leave it as it is. Put it on the wall. Wonderful. 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 But we have to do that. No way. Is that better than that? We have to make something. So we're into formal qualities. It's your job to learn as much as you can. If you leave this building, you might get into computers or anything, but you'll be good at it if you know quite a bit about formal qualities. Colour, obviously, essential. Colour is essential. Sorry about that. How are you? Good and tired. If you're in your own home, you can have a conversation. Well, you also can touch the paint. Enjoy it. Lick it. Touch it. Smell it. In Britain, last week, we had the day of smell. Was that a European thing? No. Oh. Needless to say, it was not instigated by Thatcher. And it wasn't about body odours and things, although that may have come into it. But people were actually going around smelling. You know, they were encouraged to spend the day all smelling. What a nice idea. You actually saw people going around for the first time in their lives. They discovered they had two nostrils, and perhaps they're both different. The smell of paint. That's a toothpaste. The smell. Why not have a day of touch? If you touch people on the train, you get your face smacked. Don't you? You don't go around touching people. You get that. But you can go around touching things. And of course, nobody can stop you looking. But on a train or a bus, if you start looking at someone very closely, once again you're in trouble. So we tend to switch off. Earphones, boom, 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 boom. Or we switch off. Or we switch off all our senses. We're losing the use of our senses. Thank God people may be realizing this and trying to bring back our senses. Because that's where it all lies. So, Thank you, sir. Beautiful. Once again, a colour, very difficult to touch, very difficult to skirt of displaying that lovely space. Very difficult. Object. What have I done with my hands? So there they are. We look backwards and we look forwards. A lot of art and film and animation, indeed everything we do, is constantly referring backwards. How did so-and-so? Let's go to a festival and see how other people do it. Let's see what the world has done in the past. What is the history of man, etc. We're trained carefully looking backwards. Of course, looking backwards has many kind of happy memories. Most people spend their days looking backwards. You go around and look at old people sitting in the parks. They're probably reflecting on the past. They're probably not reflecting too much on the future. They're reflecting on the past. They're looking around, they're seeing children, etc. in the world, and they remember the world as they know it. This is quite natural. The day we're born, we start looking backwards. And we're always looking forwards to it. We're looking forwards. You are looking forward right now. When is it going to finish? And we can go and have a beer and get out of here. Everybody's always looking forward. Tonight will be better. Being a student, There's a disco in front of you, Fred. And the songs have, we're always doing that. It's very odd moments that we deal with the here and now. The here and now can be also boring. I'm looking around your eyes to see how bored you are. You're awfully bored, I don't blame you. But the here and now can be very boring. Very boring. Perhaps coffee's coming soon, or this is going to happen. Or your brain somewhere else outside the window, or thinking about the summer, what am I going to do, or whatever. We're always doing that. We can't help it. We're conditioned. Our consciousness, our overall consciousness is so great. We're very sensitive to the overall, but we're not very sensitive to that. We don't spend much time in the here and now being also sensitive. Well, I watch you come in the room. I watch thousands of people. You see people on a train going through emotion. This is the here and now. But the waiting or the looking the other way. You very rarely see people conscious of the here and now and getting joy out of it. Of course, making things is about the here and now. It's got agony too. Agony. I'm sorry to keep picking on your thing, it just happens to be here. But agony. But there's a joy, you don't know which way it's going to go. You can't go backwards, your mind's not saying, how did Michelangelo do it? Oh. And perhaps you're not saying, predicting too far ahead, is somebody going to buy it? I don't think you'd be too conscious of that. Can I get 1,000 shillings? Or how did Michelangelo? But one is engaged in now. Now. Film is exactly the same. But you have to wait to see your results. You have to wait. You can't see the immediacy. That's why not many people do film. They can't wait. They want it now. So it was very easy then to run a course in Liverpool to say, how can you help students to enjoy the here and now in film with its problems of waiting and expectancy. Oh my God. It's in a black box. There it is. It's in there. It's in there. We can't see it. One day we might see it. It's in that box. A zombie. And one day it will come out of there. But by the time it comes out, you've moved on. So you're bound to be disappointed. Aren't you? You've moved on. You're enjoying another joy. How often have you been disappointed with a photograph? You take a photograph. Look at this. Look at this yellow. I will get a wide-angle lens and I will photograph it. And when you get the print, it's disappointing. Nothing like that. If I took a photograph of you now, it'd be very disappointing. I've missed the nuances of colour, tone, and look at the light on your hair, etc. Glint in this lady's eye. It'd be this banal photograph, wouldn't it? Because you'd probably all, if I had a camera, you'd all go, wouldn't you? We'd miss it. We'd be very disappointed. You go on a mountain in Austria, on the top of a mountain, get your camera out. Look at the space. Look at this. You can feel the space. You go, you get your printing. Disappointing. Nothing like that experience. I've looked round, being today, postcards. Exactly the same. Liverpool. Same print. Same banal colours. Except you've got a much nicer place in Vienna than Liverpool. But it's the same kind of object. the postcard. Bitterly disappointing. Nothing like that experience of walking through, the buildings I just walked through, and the horses and all the things. It's hard to sum it up. So you're always searching to find the equivalent of that moment and those sensations and those experiences. One's always trying to find that. The course in Liverpool is about that. Not about have a look at what somebody else did and try and imitate the history of art, the history of art, or do it like people have traditionally done. Or prediction. The young child, unfortunately, today, if you were young children and I said draw, they are part of conditioning too. What would you get? If I said to young children this big, do a little animated film, you would get rockets that would go bang, splat, pow, bang, comics, the culture. Even the young child illustrates the subculture. Pity, prediction again, etc. The young child might refer backwards too much. And if you're lucky, you can manipulate it so that here and now. There's ways of doing that with children. So certainly my course in Liverpool was concentrated on that. I showed you some evidence last night. Not that. Because many courses in Britain, in animations, everybody's busy doing space rockets that go pa! And then the symbol comes up, the end. How many films have you seen like that? Or experimental cinema. People in night dresses going over mountains. There's hundreds of these in Britain. Slow motion. Mystery. And they disappear over the hill. There's a reason for that. That refers to this inner. Well, ladies and gentlemen, perhaps we've come to a moment, because I'm sure it's awfully difficult for you, where we now could try and make sense of what I've introduced. And it may need some translation, and it may need difficulties, but we can try. We can try. So I'll just recap it from there, because I hope I can draw out a few questions. I'm sure you're wanting to infer themselves, and I'm sure you're wanting to give me an argument, and I appreciate how difficult it is to be an audience. It's easy for me, but very difficult for you, and I appreciate that. You've been very gentle, very kind. You probably haven't understood a word I've said, but once again, it doesn't matter, it's just sound. It's the day of sound today, the day of listening and the day of sound. So it doesn't really matter. But there are one or two things that you might ask. First of all, technique. Technique. Technical. Well, technical comes, I'll show you where technical comes from. Over here somewhere. Not over here. That's technical things over there. That's easy. We're not here to discuss technique. So we forget that. Unless you've got a deliberate question. There are technical things in Liverpool, for instance, bypassing. We can discuss formal, visual qualities got some videos back numbers. So we've got the formal visual things, which I demonstrated by yellow. We've got ideas, which I think and I know human beings. You see them like this every minute. You should have a little book. I have a little book. I have a little book, yes. Like that, I put down ideas. They come every second. It's difficult to keep up with them in bed. I think I learned to write in the dark ideas. But next day you've got thousands of ideas. But what are you to do? How do you select? What's important? Is it going to change anything? How do you change things? So we got the individual. Of course, the individual. We've got the world with its problems. And we have, as I say, this thing here is now. And of course, we have sensation and the senses, the emotions. That's what I've been talking about in a nutshell, in a way. Ideas are individual, isn't it? Formal things, sensation, the world at large. And how do we change? Because our job is to try and change things, isn't it? We want to change something. Entertainment confirms our existence. Art can change. I call everything art personally that I think is good information. Graphics, film, I call it all art. If it has the possibility of changing, making us feel better, feeling good. When we now come to the awkward moment, is there anything here you would like to ask me? And we now open a little debate or a discussion. Because I'm here to learn. There's no purpose in life. Every day you learn. You learn more from students. I learn more from you than you learn from me. But it's dragging it out of you. Isn't it? The language battle. Any questions? Colour, qualities, line, drawing. Yes, sir.
Well, wheelchairs, for instance. Yesterday, at your performance of called it in the evening, you spoke at the end of the kiss of death, and then you kind of told the story about people, handicapped people who are sitting in wheelchairs, and they would stay and they would ask you a lot of questions. I was thinking about that, and also right now the situation is kind of similar. What's the point? When can one body relate to something, let's say to a person or to a film? What is it that makes me kind of really get into it, get into your performance or get into the film? What is the point of kind of when can one relate to a film, let's say? What is it that makes me get a certain sensation out of a film? Because is it only the formal criteria you put on paper, or is it kind of a topic? Is it a color? Is it a combination of it? What's kind of the point of it? That's what interests me.
That's right. Well, the difficulty is, of course, you can't have film without projection, without audience, without distribution. I've just mentioned us creating that to make. But having made, then it has to be shown. And usually it's shown in difficult situations, like last night, is not a good place to contemplate a nuance or a sensation. If I loaned you one of my little films, which I have hundreds, and you went away with a battery, and you had a projector or whatever, not video, or a video screen in your own home with a glass of wine, as I said last night, there is then a moment where one can contemplate and take one's time, or indeed look at the thing several times. I think a good film is when you can look at it several times. Obviously, animation always carries with it, a lot of the time, gaps. I know in Vienna you deal with concepts and sensations, because I've seen what you do. I've known what you do for a long time. I know you deal with ideas very much, etc. We share these things, but we're sharing amongst the converted. When I see a film in Vienna, I pay a lot of attention, and I want to decode it, decipher it, and enjoy it. But we can't expect the human race in a cinema doing that. Of course we can't. Last night, you just want to get slightly entertained because you don't want to be bored, etc. I'm conscious of that too. You have to show a variety of things, and it may be not the right moment. So I think it's the moment. The moment when you receive the information is a difficult one to program, is it not? We send to festivals, slightly speaking to the church. We send to media companies. The worst moment is the media, isn't it? Television. Hello. So that you've posed a question that we could go on forever, because we've never answered the problem. How to distribute, how to get listeners, how to find audiences.
And why is it so hard to see 2 hours of animation in a row?
Well, once again, it depends on the emotions and your mood and who you are at that moment in time, doesn't it? I should think it would be very hard to withstand 10 minutes of anything if in half an hour you were to receive the Nobel Award for Literature or something. Or your expectancies were so high at that moment. I think it's awfully difficult to find a moment to give anything complete attention. Television, well, what is television? Oh yeah, that's, it's football. Oh. Well, television is like that. You can't give it attention. I mean, you're doing your hair, your fingernails, anything but attention, unless you're tired. Switch on. Of course, last night there was nobody in the front row. You should always have students planted in such things with pajamas. And that makes the lectures very interesting, of course. So I don't know. It's the moment of joy when you receive it. I mean, if I was honest and you said to me, would you sooner watch a film or enjoy the touch of autumn leaves and the reality of something? It's very hard to distinguish. So naturally it becomes a question of what you take away, and most people think it's important to take away an idea because that changes your concepts or might change your consciousness. I like the idea that you go away with change and you're more appreciative of your senses, that's all. So I think your question is the most difficult one of all time because we all experience that. Television companies put you down. Can't you? See, the film I showed you, Nightclub. The young student took his film to the Royal College of Art in London to see if he could enter a post-grad situation. The tutors in the Royal College of Art looked at his film, not on a big screen, they looked at it on a monitor, on a Steinbeck. And then they said, yes, it needs a fight. That was their interpretation. You must put a fight in that film. The student said, no. Fortunately, he got in, did his postgrad. He resisted. But why did they say that? Everybody has to make a contribution that way. What is it one's looking at? Wherever it's distributed, the audience reaction, the audience problem, most difficult. Your question is unanswerable. Because we haven't found. In Britain, we have a limited circuit for animation. After television want entertainment. They want millions to view. So if it's a student experimental film, or indeed any experimental film, you're lucky if it's put on at 1 o'clock in the morning when everybody's in bed. You're very lucky if it's put on at prime time. If it's on prime time, it has to be entertaining. So there's the problem with distribution there. There's the problem of distribution. Universities, yes. Art societies, visual societies, sure. But it's it's a small country, so there's limited distribution. In America, obviously, it's a massive area, so they do have more independent filmmakers and more independent distribution. People will assemble in a little hut in the heart of the desert to look at some experimental film and be delighted to do so, because it's just images and things. They're not expecting too much. In Britain, university students will expect intellectuals and concepts. They certainly won't just expect sensation. They probably won't even notice it. So I'm trying for when people, as I said yesterday, have video screens in their own home, bigger than this. Therefore, we've got a reasonable amount of space. It's certainly not peripheral vision, but you could get closer to it, and you could be more aware of sensation rather than the messages, the concepts. So that's what I'm working towards. Last night I was hoping people would obviously be trying to pick out one word that might help to tolerate something. But one was conscious of, you're always conscious of entertainment, aren't you? Even, I showed you an experimental thing last night, drawing with light. It does go on a bit. It does go on. But how dare one suggest to the student that he should cut it or do something shorter so people aren't get bored with it? It's very easy to get bored. Once your brain is plugged in to what it is, and you've conquered the fear of it slightly, and you whatever, you can easily get bored. I think people do make a lot of mystery out of film to try and engage people's intellect, to try and decode like a game. At the moment in Britain, the most popular TV programs are quiz games. We have a funny concept that the most interesting people in the world carry around huge heads full of useless information. And they're on television. Who died on December the 1st, 1802, in a back street in Great. Even the pubs are full of people filling in the quiz form. Why is this so? What kind of complex has the human race got now? If we've got all this information and we carry it around, is it the yardstick that the more you can regurgitate quickly on call, the brighter and more intelligent you are? So I think the answer to your question carries all those burdens. I really do. Because in any cross-section of an audience, you've got everybody there. Unfortunately, in animation, like last night, you've got specialists, you've got people who may have been looking technique, it might have been helpful technique. You've got people thinking, I felt better than that, and so on. They want confirmation of the direction. You've got a cross section. But the general public, they're expecting jokes and cartoons. But once they've seen the gag, once the gag is gone, they don't want to see it again. And it seems to me that, like a great painting, you never get tired of painting, do you? In fact, if one puts a field of colour in a room, I never get tired of a field of colour. There's nothing there, only a colour. But you can sit and have your breakfast, and it's still effective. It's effective. But if you put a big gag up, a piece of gag, a joke, you wouldn't have that long in your room, would you? The joke's gone. So I'm all for something that lingers on, and each day makes one more aware of something else, etc. Keeps going. So you've brought in, perhaps we should have a world debate. First of all, we should say, what is entertainment? What do we mean by it? Why do we need it? Or what's it doing? I know that the world is now pleasure-seeking. I was looking at some people in the train yesterday, and they all have the same thing. They have a big duffel bag full of pleasure. Cans of Coke, chewing gum, other goodies, yo-yos. You know what a yo-yo is? They get bored of that. So everybody seems to go around now with a big bag of pleasure. But pleasure's become so big, we lose now what it is. We want more and more. These people with these big bags of pleasure. What else can I do? What can I do? I'll do that. Everybody's on this search for pleasure. So it's awfully difficult to entertain people. People are going to say, that gag. The pleasure search has got to be reversed. Of course, because pleasure and pain got out of balance, we now have people in search of amazing amounts of violence. In Liverpool, every other shop now is selling videos that contain the most ridiculous violence. And the ordinary working people are queuing up to buy their 2 videos for the night's violence. And then they're drinking their popcorns and all their American gear and their yo-yos and whatever, and watching this fight. The world's gone bananas, so how can you get an audience, and who is audience? I believe that one day, unless it's taken nearer to painting that moves, we won't have an audience. As I was saying to somebody yesterday, I was in the Highlands of Scotland, 15 miles from anywhere down the track. I drove down this track, and I came eventually to a lonely pub with the light, miles from anywhere. So I went in the pub, thinking of the rare whiskies. And the people in the pub were all watching Dallas, American television. I said, excuse me, hello, just a minute. That's what they were doing. What for? What is it? What is this drug? Escape. Anesthetics have overtaken aesthetics. So, how the hell can we answer that question? No way. You as an audience would be looking, what can I get from this? I'm into this, I'm making films, I paint, I draw. What can I get out of this? Or is there anything to get out of it? Is it any good? Is it ropey? You know, and so on and so on. Like looking at any object. Unfortunately, the best of painting now is so valuable that it's in vaults, isn't it? Or behind bulletproof screens. How can you expect ordinary people to go into an art gallery? They think it's a museum. It's nothing to do with that. And this huge thing that's behind bulletproof screens with men in uniforms guarding it, guns probably. What's that to do with that? If you owned a Picasso in Liverpool, it'd be stolen within days. So you'd have to have it in a vault and nobody could see it. John Lennon, of Beatles, you've heard of John Lennon. He gave Liverpool a lot of drawings, beautiful drawings. He was a very good visual artist. But he chose the guitar. Perhaps if he'd have gone the other way and stuck to draw, he would have made a super animator. He would have been excellent. But obviously he died, and his widow gave Liverpool College of Art a lot of his drawings. We put them on display, had them framed. Within days they were stolen. They haven't been seen since. Isn't that wonderful? You can't even show people now. If somebody says, this is worth 5 million shillings, it'll probably disappear out of the studio in half an hour. No, in Vienna you're very honest people, but somebody come along or maybe even destroy it. Film, of course, is in the box, so the audience is a different problem. Film is in that cap. Nobody's going to steal that because you've got the copies. Terribly sorry about that, but you hope if you want to come back to Liverpool for 6 months, we can carry on talking about this. Because it's everybody's problem, isn't it? There's no result. The festivals are now gone highly commercial. They want to sell these and this and that and that. They're into entertainment. The artists of the world, certainly in Britain, our government is Philistine. It probably sees artists as very, very subversive. Let's put them to grass, let's get rid of them. The visual arts in Britain are very low end. Advertising is on up. So the visual arts are very low end. Relegated to, as I say, bulletproof. You see Monet in a gallery in Britain, it's behind a bulletproof glass. And as I say, what does it mean to ordinary people going by? Nothing. You don't even go. There's splendid galleries in Britain where people who live next door. We did a survey once, and we asked all the people who live around this tremendous art gallery, what do you think of your art gallery? Oh, I've never been there. Don't go there. Why? Well, it's a museum. You know, there's that kind of strange attitude. Of course, there's tourists going around, but like myself today, you know, with your maps and your things, and whatever, etc., etc. But film is another story. How do we? The cinema, I've looked at Vienna cinemas, trinos, sex, violence. Absolutely the same. Most of them. London's riddled with sex, violence, amazing doses of overkill, pleasure-seeking violence. So I don't know the answer, and it's awful when you're speaking to the converted. So I like to experiment by asking people into my studio, my home, and put things on when they don't even suspect. But if you've got the right beer, the right whiskey, maybe you'll be plugged in. I've seen them, maybe farmers. Farmers in Britain, we have farmers who wear caps all year. They might take them off in the shower, but that's highly debatable. So I thought I was winning an audience survey when a farmer came into my studio once and actually took his cap off and put a film on. That might be that might be indicative of something. Sorry about that. I have no answer. But the debate would be wonderful if we could continue. Perhaps some of you have an answer. Perhaps Hubert has the answer.
But the English has a lot of musical cues. Musical cues
Oh yeah.
in television.
Yes.
We have now certain channels, and I also look at the English program. And I see a lot of music being used the whole day. They look music.
Oh yes.
I have the impression. The modern music, I mean,
You can make a lot of money doing musical videos because they're very much in demand. But I range them terribly sorry into the category of anesthetics. Because once again, there's so many people going around in Britain with earphones and personal stereos and whatever to anaesthetize themselves in the here and now, not enjoy particularly a sound. I mean, we all have our moments of sound fashion. But John Lennon and the Beatles, when they were amateur, in my studio every Wednesday night we used to have a night where you'd have some coffee and because nobody could afford strong drink. And they used to come and play, and so did a lot of Liverpool groups. And people would play and read poetry and do that kind of thing. But when it was amateur, that was marvellous. But when they became professional, managed, and big business, it obviously was desaturated from the moment. The moment is when somebody gets a drum out, like Hubert played the drum for me before. That was a magic moment. He can play very well, I think. But that was a real moment. But because of the abstraction, because sound is abstract, because it reaches and vibrates the soul, because it's about emotions and sensations at the one time, because we're brought up and conditioned in a sense, because the power game, because if you've got more discos than someone else. Once again, I saw people on the train the other day with bags full of compact discs. You know, they're all sharing. I've got more discs than you, kind of thing. So I'm very nervous of sound, honestly. I think it's an amazing competitor. Film it does need sound, but you can make soundless film. I dare you to make a soundless film. I dare you. About sound. I dare you. I am going to make an animated film about sound that sounds. Or I'm going to make an animated film about sound that's visionless. That's easy. Or I'm going to paint a picture that has nothing there. Snowstorm. Winter. The Arctic. Of course. So sound, I'm very nervous of. I think it's been overcooked. Obviously, it's millions. Recently, I was asked by a television company, Midland Television, Britain.
and the English program is very comic. When I look at the English program, I look often the comic people. I look at a very famous comic. And I don't remember the name.
You mean animation or?
Animation, yes. Always have a music video or animation.
Oh, of course.
Yes.
Have you seen any of these?
A lot of humor.
Yeah, well, that's because we have a man in Britain called Bob Godfrey, who, if you knew him, is always cracking gags anyway. He loves gags. So, gags are entertaining, so somebody said. So he has lots of gags on the telly. But they asked me, would I do some animation? I used to do some animation for popular things in Britain, sound. But they pay you so little. The groups, that's why I'm a bit annoyed. The groups playing and the musicians get a lot of money. I did 20 minutes of animation and got a fraction of it. And no credits. boom, 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 and there's my animation. So the independent filmmaker said, you mustn't do that, we don't pay it. So the other day I was asked to do a program of music from the 50s, nostalgia. So I said, well, if you want live action footage from the 50s, people from the 50s would prefer to see images of, if you're going to go backwards and resurrect nostalgia, why not show them? Oh no, we've got to get the young in this. To bring the young in to watch these programs, we'll use contemporary animation, gags, and all that. So I said, goodbye, and lost about a lot of money. But why just, do gags? Does that make sense over that sound? Another unanswerable difficulty.
Well, several times maybe I look at the Shakespeare theater. Shakespeare and the music videos and the gags.
Yes. But once again, there's certain geniuses in the sense that are timeless, aren't they? Timeless. Mozart. So on. Timeless. Timeless. You think of the painters that are timeless. Matisse. Timeless. The fashion in sound is, certainly in my day, there was fashions in sound. There's always fashions in sound. You soon see the fashion go through, don't you? I think we've exhausted that one. Have I exhausted you all? Any further questions, Hubert, before we... I can go on forever, I assure you, because it's important to debate kindred spirits throughout the world, aspects of the senses of vision. I wish it was happening in China right now. I wish it was happening everywhere, that people got together to try and understand these differences. Why do we need pleasure? Why do we need entertainment? Why do we lose the threads of things? Who the hell are we? Etc., etc. So that is the debate. The only contribution I've made, in particular, I do know something about light and colour. I shall sit here in a moment, and anybody that wants to stay and talk about that is absolutely welcome. It's a phenomenon that's hardly been touched. Because we have pigment, pigment is so far removed. I mean, that intensity of that yellow or that blue there, with the light bouncing off those heavens, it's awfully difficult to be captured in pigment. So we have to make adjustments. Same thing in film. You're constantly adjusting the intensities towards what you're trying to say. The fashion of painting of years ago was to lower tone, lower colour, so that you could make certain intensities. Then there was a fashion, or not a fashion, but people like Matisse, who then became proud of the intensity and the vibrancy of colours and juxtaposition, etc. And of course, the space in Matisse. He was interested in the side of the canvas. There. But red, obviously, might appear over here, and blue might be there as an illusion if you're looking at it here. I'm looking at this. Perhaps the phenomena of red and blue would give you this depth space illusion. What a wonderful problem. What a wonderful problem if you can reverse that. How can you reverse that on a canvas so that the blue is here and the red is there? Of course, in light, it's no problem, because that's what happens in light. I'm always amazed by art historians showing slides of paint, because light does different things to pigment. So Matisse set himself lots of problems of pollution, things like that, and abuse themselves, we should do the same. We can set lots of problems up in film. How can things work reverse? Just the same, the light. Should I draw this to a conclusion?
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you. Thank you all. You've been very patient. Well done. So, you've survived. Survival class. I'll sit here anyway. If anybody wants to tackle me out here, only two things. Yellow.